The stars outside Station Nexus 7 burned cold and distant. Ambassador David Park stood by the observation window, watching cargo ships drift past like slow fish in a dark ocean. He had been living on this station for 2 years now. 2 years of meetings, handshakes with beings who had no hands, and smiling at creatures who found human teeth terrifying. David was a tall man with tired eyes and gray hair at his temples. Earth had sent him here to make friends with aliens. It was not an easy job. Most species in the Galactic Council thought humans were strange, too emotional, too unpredictable, too attached to their families. That last part confused the aliens most of all. "Daddy, look what I made." David turned to see his daughter Emma running toward him. She was 7 years old, small and thin, with black hair tied in 2 messy braids. In her hands, she carried a drawing made with colored markers. It showed a purple alien with 6 arms standing next to a small human girl. Both figures were smiling. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," David said, kneeling down to look at it properly. "Is that Ambassador Vethril?" "Yes, I drew it for him." He said human art is interesting. "I want to show him that we can draw his people too." David smiled, but worry lived behind his eyes. Emma was the only human child on the station. Every other species kept their young ones far away from diplomatic posts. Children were hidden, protected, locked in safe places until they grew up. But humans were different. Humans brought their families everywhere. The aliens did not understand this. They thought it was foolish, dangerous, weak. David thought it was the most human thing about them. A soft knock came from the door. It slid open to reveal a man in simple gray clothes. He was shorter than David, with a plain face and calm dark eyes. His name was Michael Kim, and he was Emma's bodyguard. Michael had been a Marine once, long ago. He fought in the frontier wars when humanity first met hostile aliens. He was famous among military people, though he never talked about it. Other soldiers called him the Honey Badger because of how he fought. Small, quiet, and absolutely without fear or mercy. Now he was 53 years old and worked as private security. His job was simple: keep Emma safe. He took this job more seriously than anything he had ever done in his life. "The reception starts in 1 hour, Ambassador," Michael said. His voice was soft and flat, like still water. "Thank you, Michael." "Is everything secure?" "Yes, sir." I walked the route twice. Station security is in position. Nothing unusual. Emma ran over to Michael and grabbed his hand. Mike, look at my drawing." Michael looked down at the paper. His expression did not change, but something warm flickered in his eyes. "That's very good, Emma. The proportions are accurate." "Propor what?" "You drew him the right size." "Good job." Emma beamed with pride. She had known Michael for 2 years now. At first, she thought he was boring because he never laughed or played games. But slowly she learned that Michael showed love in different ways. He remembered her favorite foods. He taught her how to fall without getting hurt. He always stood where he could see every door. Michael was not warm like her father. But Emma knew, with the simple certainty of children, that Michael would die before letting anyone hurt her. The reception hall was filled with aliens of every shape and size. The Velthari were tall and elegant, with blue skin and 4 eyes. The Kryn were insect-like, clicking and buzzing as they spoke. The Moradi floated in anti-gravity chairs, their jellyfish bodies pulsing with soft light. And in the middle of it all, little Emma Park walked without fear. She approached Ambassador Vethril, the Velthari diplomat, and held up her drawing. "I made this for you." The tall alien looked down at the human child. Velthari did not smile, but his 4 eyes blinked in a pattern that meant surprise and pleasure. He took the drawing carefully with his long fingers. "You have drawn me," Vethril said. "This is Unexpected. Veltri children do not create art until they are 40 years old. 40? Emma's eyes went wide. But that's so old. We live for 600 years. Small one. 40 is very young for us. Emma thought about this. So you're like a baby who got really tall? Several nearby aliens made strange sounds. David realized with horror that they were laughing. The Veltri ambassador's eyes blinked rapidly. I have never been described that way, Vethral said. But I suppose it is accurate. Yes, I am a baby who got really tall. Emma nodded seriously. That's okay. I'll be your friend anyway. Something changed in the room after that. The stiff, formal atmosphere melted a little. Other aliens began approaching the human child, curious about this small creature who spoke to everyone as equals. Emma asked the Kryn delegate if his armor was itchy. She told a Marathi that she looked like a pretty rainbow. She complimented a grumpy Theshan warrior on his sharp teeth. David watched in amazement. His daughter was doing more for human relations in one evening than he had done in months of careful negotiation. Michael watched too, but his eyes were not on Emma. They moved constantly around the room, checking faces, watching hands, noting exits. Something felt wrong to him. He could not explain it. The feeling was like a cold whisper at the back of his neck. He had learned long ago to trust that feeling. Near the edge of the room, a service door opened briefly. A maintenance worker stepped out, looked around, and stepped back in. It happened in 3 seconds. Nobody noticed. Nobody except Michael. He filed it away in his mind. Probably nothing. But Michael had survived 30 years of combat by treating probably nothing as definitely something. The reception ended late. Emma fell asleep in her father's arms as they walked back to their quarters. Michael followed 3 steps behind, silent as a shadow. She did well tonight, David said quietly. Better than any of us. Children often do, Michael replied. They don't know they're supposed to be afraid. David smiled sadly. I wish I could keep her that way forever. Michael said nothing, but in his mind, he made a promise. Whatever darkness was gathering in the shadows of this station, it would not touch Emma Park. He would make sure of that, even if he had to burn the whole galaxy down to do it. Far across the galaxy, in a ship made of black metal and bad intentions, High Commander Thulvex studied the reports on his screen. The Dominion of Krath had ruled over 12 star systems for 3,000 years. They were conquerors, slavers, and masters of fear. Other species whispered their name like a curse. But now, something new had entered the galaxy. Something that worried the Dominion's leaders. Humans. Thulvex was old, even by craft standards. His scales had turned from green to gray, and scars covered his face like a map of violence. He had crushed rebellions, destroyed fleets, and broken the spirits of entire civilizations. Nothing had ever frightened him until he read the reports about humanity. These creatures were small, weak. They lived for barely 100 years. Their bodies were soft, their claws non-existent, their teeth dull. By every measure, they should have been easy prey. And yet, wherever humans went, things changed. Slave species started asking questions. Conquered worlds began to hope. The careful order that the Dominion had built over millennia was starting to crack. They breed too fast, Thulvex muttered to his advisor. They adapt too quickly. And they have this madness, this willingness to die for each other. They are a disease, his advisor agreed. But diseases can be cured. Thulvex tapped his claws on the arm of his chair. He had been thinking about this problem for months. Direct war with humanity was risky. Those soft little creatures had already proven they could fight. The frontier wars had shown that much. No, he needed a different approach. Something that would make humanity bend without breaking them. Something that would show the galaxy that humans could be controlled like any other species. Then he saw it in the intelligence report. A single line that made him smile his terrible smile. Human Ambassador David Park, stationed at Nexus 7, accompanied by his 7-year-old daughter, Emma. They bring their children to war zones, Tholvac said softly. How very useful. The plan was simple. Capture the child. Hold her hostage. Force humanity to withdraw from the galactic stage. Make them small again. Make them afraid. Tholvac selected his best soldiers for the mission. 16 elite operatives, trained from birth to kill. Their leader was Krulfek, a veteran of 50 campaigns who had never known failure. He was brutal, efficient, and completely loyal to the Dominion. The child must be taken alive and unharmed, Tholvac instructed. Kill anyone who stands in your way. But the girl is valuable. She is our key to controlling the humans. Krulfek bowed his scarred head. What about the security forces? Station security is pathetic. A few guards with light weapons. You will cut through them like wind through grass. Tholvac waved a clawed hand dismissively. There is also a human male assigned to protect the child. A former soldier. Our intelligence says he is old and poses no real threat. He pulled up Michael Kim's file on the screen. A plain face stared back at them. Brown eyes. Gray hair. Small frame. This is their protector? Krulfek laughed, a harsh sound like grinding stones. He looks like prey. All humans look like prey, Tholvac agreed. That is why this mission will succeed. 2 weeks later, the Krath infiltration team arrived at Station Nexus 7. They came hidden in cargo containers, disguised as shipping equipment. One by one, they slipped out into the station's maintenance tunnels, gathering in the darkness like poison collecting in a wound. Krulfak moved through the shadows with practiced ease. The station's layout was exactly as their intelligence had described. Security patrols were predictable and slow. The humans trusted too much in their allies. That trust would destroy them. Meanwhile, in the ambassador's quarters, Emma was having trouble sleeping. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the strange dream she had just had. In the dream, she was walking through a dark forest, and something was following her. Something with too many teeth. Can't sleep? Emma looked up. Michael was standing in her doorway, a glass of water in his hand. He always seemed to know when she was awake. I had a bad dream, she admitted. Michael walked over and sat on the edge of her bed. He handed her the water. Dreams can't hurt you. They're just your brain practicing for things that might never happen. What if the bad things do happen? Michael was quiet for a moment. Then you remember your training. What's the first rule? Don't panic, Emma recited. Panicking makes you stupid. Good. And the second rule? Trust Mike. Mike always has a plan. A tiny smile crossed Michael's face. It was so small that most people would have missed it. But Emma saw it, and it made her feel safer. That's right. Now try to sleep. Tomorrow is another diplomatic reception, and your father needs you to charm more aliens. Emma giggled and lay back down. Okay. Good night, Mike. Good night, Emma. Michael left her room but did not go far. He stood in the hallway, his back against the wall, his eyes watching the shadows. The cold feeling at the back of his neck had grown stronger over the past 2 weeks. Something was wrong. Something was coming. He had checked the security systems 100 times. He had walked every corridor, memorized every face, noted every detail. But the threat remained invisible, and that worried him more than anything. Tomorrow night. That was when the next reception would happen. Hundreds of aliens in one room. Chaos. Noise. The perfect cover for an attack. Michael closed his eyes and let his mind go quiet. He had been in situations like this before, many times. The waiting was always the hardest part. The knowing that violence was coming but not knowing when or from where. He thought about Emma, her laugh, her drawings, the way she saw the good in everyone, even grumpy old soldiers who had forgotten how to smile. She was 7 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. And Michael had made a promise, not just to her father, but to himself. Nothing would touch her. Nothing. In the darkness of the maintenance tunnels, Kulthek finalized his plans. The attack would come during the reception. His team would strike fast and hard. 4 minutes from start to finish. Anyone who resisted would die. He looked at the image of their target one more time. A small human girl with messy braids and a bright smile. So fragile, he thought. So easy to break. He did not know that somewhere above him, a quiet man with calm dark eyes was also preparing. A man who had been underestimated by enemies, far more dangerous than the dominion of Krath. A man they called the Honey Badger. The storm was coming, and neither side knew just how much blood it would bring. The reception hall glittered with lights and the soft hum of alien conversation. Diplomats from a dozen species mingled, trading polite words and hidden agendas. Ambassador David Park moved through the crowd with practiced grace, shaking hands and making promises. Emma stayed close to her father's side, wearing her best dress and her brightest smile. She had already made 3 new alien friends tonight. A young Marathi named Glow taught her how to make light patterns with her hands. A grumpy Vishan guard actually laughed at one of her jokes. Even the stiff Velthari delegate seemed warmer when she was around. Michael stood 3 steps behind them, as always. His gray clothes made him almost invisible among the colorful aliens. Just another human servant. Nothing to worry about. But Michael was worried that something felt different tonight. The air seemed thicker somehow. His instinct screamed warnings that his mind could not explain. He watched the service doors, the corners, the shadows between the lights. That was when the lights went out. For 2 heartbeats, everything was black. Then emergency lights flickered on, painting the room in dim red. Aliens began to murmur in confusion. Michael moved before the first scream. He grabbed Emma's hand and pulled her close to her father. "Stay with her," he said to David, his voice sharp as a blade. "Don't move from this spot." The screams came then. Plasma fire lit up the darkness as Krath soldiers poured through the service doors. Their weapons cut down station security before the guards could even reach for their guns. 4 officers died in the first 10 seconds. Panic erupted. Aliens ran in every direction, trampling each other, blocking exits. The Krath moved through the chaos like wolves through sheep, heading straight for their target, heading for Emma. David threw himself in front of his daughter, his arms spread wide. He was not a fighter. He was a diplomat, a man of words and handshakes. But in that moment, he would have fought a god to protect his child. A neural pulse hit him in the chest. His eyes went wide, his body locked up, and he fell to the ground like a puppet with cut strings. "Daddy!" Emma screamed. Kulthek stepped out of the smoke, his scarred face twisted in triumph. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in scales and old wounds. In his clawed hand, he held a blade that glowed with cruel light. "The human child," he growled. "You will come with us, now." Emma backed away, her heart pounding, tears streaming down her face. She looked for Michael, but he was gone. The crowd had swallowed him. She was alone. Kulthek reached for her dot, and then Michael came out of nowhere. He did not run. He did not shout. He simply appeared, stepping between Emma and the Krath commander like he had been there all along. In his hands were 2 weapons taken from fallen Krath soldiers. "Get behind me, Emma," Michael said. His voice was calm. Too calm. Kulthek paused. This was the old human from the reports. The non-threatening bodyguard. Up close, he looked even less impressive. Small, plain, soft. Move aside, human, Krulthuk ordered. You cannot fight us. We are 16. You are 1. Michael did not move aside. 3 Krath soldiers rushed him from the left. Michael shot the first one in the face, ducked under the second one's blade, and broke the third one's neck with his bare hands. The whole thing took less than 2 seconds. The remaining Krath froze. Michael turned to face them. Something had changed in his eyes. In the red emergency light, they seemed to glow with a color that was not quite natural. Not brown anymore. Darker. Closer to crimson. Emma, Michael said quietly. Close your eyes and count to 50. But Mike, now. Emma, don't open them until I say. Emma squeezed her eyes shut. She began to count, her voice shaking. 1, 2, 3. The sounds that followed would haunt the survivors for the rest of their lives. Plasma, fire, screams, the wet crack of breaking bones. Bodies hitting the floor. Michael moved through the Krath like a storm through dead leaves, taking their weapons, turning their own strength against them. He did not fight like a soldier. He fought like something older and more terrible. 4, 5, 6. A Krath warrior swung a blade at his head. Michael caught the arm, twisted it backward, and used the warrior's own weapon to kill the 2 soldiers behind him. 7, 8, 9. 2 more rushed him together. Michael dropped low, swept their legs out from under them, and finished them before they hit the ground. 10, 11, 12. The Krath began to panic. They had trained their whole lives for combat. They had never faced anything like this. The human moved too fast, hit too hard, knew exactly where they would be before they got their dot. By the time Emma reached 30, only 3 Krath soldiers remained. By 40, only Krulthuk was left standing. The Krath commander grabbed Emma before Michael could stop him. He pulled her close, pressing his glowing blade against her throat. Stop! Krulthuk roared. Stop or she dies. Michael stopped. He stood in the middle of the reception hall, surrounded by fallen enemies, not a single wound on his body. Plasma burns marked the walls behind him. The floor was slick with alien blood, but his eyes were fixed on Emma, on the blade at her throat. Let her go, Michael said. Krulthuk laughed. It was a desperate sound, the laugh of a predator who suddenly realized he was prey. You think I'm afraid of you? I am Krath. I have conquered worlds. I will not be frightened by one old human. I'm not trying to frighten you, Michael replied. I'm giving you one chance to live. You're in no position to freeze seconds, Michael interrupted. You have 3 seconds to release her. After that, what happens to you is your own choice. You won't risk the girl. 2 seconds. Krulthuk pressed the blade tighter. A thin line of red appeared on Emma's neck. She whimpered but kept her eyes closed, still counting under her breath. 40-8. 49. 1 second, Michael said. His eyes had gone fully crimson now. There was no more brown in them. Just that deep, bloody red that seemed to come from somewhere beyond human biology. The look of a predator that had stopped pretending to be prey. Last chance, Michael whispered. Krulthuk made his choice. He pressed the blade deeper. 50. Emma went completely limp, dropping like a stone just as Michael had taught her. Dead weight. The oldest escape trick in the book, and in the half-second of confusion that followed, the honey badger moved. Time seemed to slow down as Emma fell. Her body dropped straight down, sliding out of Krulthuk's grip like water through fingers. The blade that had been at her throat cut only air. Michael crossed the distance between them in 3 steps. His hand shot out, grabbed Krulthuk's weapon arm, and twisted it with a sharp crack. The blade clattered to the floor. The Krath commander screamed. It was a sound no one had ever heard him make before. The sound of a predator who had finally met something more dangerous than himself. Michael did not give him time to recover. He drove his elbow into Cruelfish's throat, crushing his windpipe. Then he swept the alien's legs and brought him crashing to the ground. In one smooth motion, Michael retrieved the fallen blade and pressed it against the commander's neck. "Stay down," Michael said quietly. Cruelfish tried to speak, but only a wet gurgling sound came out. His eyes were wide with fear and confusion. This was not possible. He was elite Krath. He had trained since childhood. He had killed hundreds, and this small plain human had beaten him in less than 5 seconds. Emma opened her eyes. She was lying on the floor, shaking, her dress stained with someone else's blood. But she was alive. The cut on her neck was shallow, nothing more than a scratch. "Mike?" she whispered. Michael did not turn around. His eyes were still fixed on Cruelfish, that terrible crimson glow fading slowly back to dark brown. His breathing was steady. His hands were still. "I'm here, Emma. Are you hurt?" I don't think so." "Good. Go to your father. Check if he's breathing." Emma scrambled across the floor to where David lay unconscious. She pressed her ear to his chest and heard the steady beat of his heart. Tears of relief streamed down her face. "He's okay. He's breathing. Good girl." Station security finally arrived, flooding through the doors with weapons drawn. They stopped dead when they saw the scene before them. 16 Krath soldiers lay scattered across the reception hall. Most were dead. A few were groaning, badly wounded. And in the middle of it all stood Michael Kim, calm and quiet, holding the enemy commander at blade point. The security chief, a Veltari named Thren, approached slowly. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he tried to understand what he was seeing. What happened here?" Michael nodded toward the fallen Krath. "Dominion infiltration team. 16 operatives. They were trying to kidnap the ambassador's daughter. And you stopped them? Alone?" Michael said nothing. He did not need to. Thren looked at the bodies, then back at the small human who had created this carnage. He had heard stories about humans, how they were more dangerous than they appeared, how they came from a death world where everything wanted to kill them, how they protected their young with a ferocity that bordered on madness. He had never believed those stories. Until now, medical teams rushed in to help the wounded. Someone gently picked up Emma and wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. David was placed on a stretcher and carried to the medical bay. The immediate crisis was over, but Michael was not finished. He dragged Cruelfish to his feet, keeping the blade at the alien's throat. The Krath commander was still conscious, though barely. His scales had turned pale with shock and blood loss. "The cameras," Michael said, looking up at the security feeds that covered every corner of the station. "They're recording?" Thren nodded slowly. "Yes, everything is being recorded." "Good. Make sure this broadcast reaches the Dominion of Krath. I have a message for them." Thren hesitated. Protocol said he should take the prisoner. He should handle this through proper channels. But something in Michael's eyes made him step back instead. "Very well," Thren said quietly. "The galaxy is watching." Michael turned to face the cameras directly. His expression was calm, almost peaceful. But his eyes still carried that hint of crimson, a warning written in blood. "My name is Michael Kim," he began. "Some of you know me as the Honey Badger. I'm speaking now to the Dominion of Krath and anyone else who might have similar ideas." He paused, letting the silence stretch out. "Tonight, your soldiers came for a human child, a 7-year-old girl who's never hurt anyone. They came with weapons and numbers and the belief that they were dangerous." Michael's grip tightened on Cruelfish's shoulder, and the alien whimpered. They were wrong. He took a slow breath. "I want to make something very clear. Humanity does not protect its children with armies. We do not need fleets or space stations or galactic alliances. We protect our children with people like me. And there are millions of us. In every colony. On every ship. In every corner of human space. His voice dropped lower. We come from a world where everything wanted to kill us. Our oceans are full of monsters. Our forests are filled with predators. Our weather tries to destroy us every year. And we survived it all. We became the apex predators of a planet that never wanted us to exist. Michael looked directly into the camera. You think we're soft because we smile. You think we're weak because we show kindness. You think we're foolish because we bring our children with us wherever we go. For the first time, something like emotion entered his voice. Our children are not our weakness. They are the reason we fight. They are the reason we refuse to die. And anyone who threatens them will learn what humanity truly is. He released Krulthuk, letting the craft commander collapse to the floor. Consider this your only warning. Threaten a human child, and you will meet the honey badger. You will meet all of us. And we do not show mercy. Michael turned and walked away from the camera. The broadcast ended. In the medical bay. Emma sat beside her father's bed, holding his hand. The doctor said he would wake up soon. The neural pulse had not caused permanent damage. Michael appeared in the doorway. His gray clothes were stained with alien blood, but his face was as calm as ever. "Mike!" Emma jumped up and ran to him. She threw her arms around his waist and held on tight. Michael stood very still for a moment. Then, slowly, his hand came down to rest on her head. "You did good, Emma," he said softly. "You remembered your training. I was so scared. Being scared is okay. You were scared, and you did the right thing anyway. That's called being brave." Emma looked up at him with tear-filled eyes. "Mike, were your eyes really red?" Michael said nothing for a long moment. "Just a trick of the light," he finally answered. "Now get some rest. Your father will want to see you when he wakes up." He guided her back to her chair and then stepped outside the room. In the corridor, he let out a long, slow breath. His hands were shaking now. The adrenaline was finally fading. For the first time in hours, he felt how tired he truly was. But Emma was safe. That was all that mattered. That was all that had ever mattered. The galaxy changed in the weeks that followed. Not with a great war or a dramatic declaration, but with whispers. Stories passed from ship to ship, from station to station, from world to world. The story of Station Nexus 7, the story of the honey badger. The footage spread across every network. Billions of beings watched a single human tear through 16 elite craft soldiers like they were nothing. They watched his eyes turn red. They heard his message, calm and cold and absolutely certain. And they were afraid. The Dominion of Krath suffered more damage from that one night than from a century of wars. 3 of their slave species declared independence within a month. The Galactic Council passed emergency sanctions. Trade routes closed. Allies became enemies. High Commander Tholvex was executed by his own government. His plan had been meant to humble humanity. Instead, it had awakened something the galaxy had never truly seen before. Not human anger. Not human violence. Something worse. Human love. The kind of love that turned ordinary people into monsters. The kind of love that made parents walk through fire. The kind of love that looked at a small child and said, "Nothing in the universe will ever hurt you while I still breathe." Ambassador David Park recovered fully. He spent 3 days in the medical bay before the doctors cleared him to leave. The first thing he did was find Michael and try to thank him. Michael just shrugged. "I was doing my job. You killed 16 people to protect my daughter. Like I said, my job." David did not know what to say to that. How did you thank someone for something like that? There were no words big enough. In the end, He simply took Michael's hand and held it for a long moment. Nothing else needed to be said. Emma became famous, though she did not fully understand why. Aliens sent her gifts from across the galaxy. Children from 100 species wrote her letters, asking about the red-eyed human who protected her. She answered each letter herself, drawing pictures and telling stories. She never forgot that night. The fear, the blood, the sound of Mike's voice telling her to close her eyes. But the memories did not break her. If anything, they made her stronger. She learned that the universe was dangerous. But she also learned that there were people who would stand against that danger. People who would protect the innocent no matter the cost. She decided she wanted to be one of those people. Years passed. Emma grew up. She studied hard, trained harder, and joined the Human Military Academy at 18. Her instructors noticed something different about her. A quiet confidence. A refusal to give up. A certainty that reminded them of soldiers twice her age. At 25, she became the youngest captain in the human fleet. At 30, she was promoted to admiral. At 35, she became the first human to command the combined galactic fleet. In her office on the flagship Humanity, she kept 3 things on her desk. A picture of her father, now old and gray but still smiling. A drawing she had made as a child, showing a purple alien next to a human girl. And a small statue of a honey badger, its eyes painted crimson. Visitors often asked about the statue. Emma would smile and say, "It reminds me of someone." Michael Kim retired after the incident at Nexus 7. He refused every medal, every honor, every interview request. He did not want fame. He did not want recognition. He just wanted peace. He bought a small farm on a colony world called New Kansas. The land was quiet and green, with rolling hills and simple people who did not ask too many questions. He grew vegetables. He raised animals. He lived a quiet life, but he did not stop teaching. Every weekend, local children came to his farm to learn self-defense. Michael taught them how to fall without getting hurt, how to stay calm when they were afraid, how to protect themselves and each other. He never charged money for the lessons. He never turned any child away. Some nights, travelers passing through the area would see an old man sitting on his porch, watching the stars. His eyes seemed to catch the light strangely, glowing with a red tint that was probably just a reflection of the sunset. The legend of the honey badger spread throughout the galaxy. It became a warning, a story told to frighten those who might harm humans. Parents from 100 species told their children, "Be careful with the humans. They look soft, but cross them and they become something else." A saying became popular in the outer colonies. Never corner a human. Never threaten their cubs. It was repeated so often that people forgot where it came from. The dominion of Krath never recovered. Their empire slowly crumbled, eaten away by rebellion and shame. The species they had enslaved remembered what one human had done to their masters. They remembered, and they hoped. If a small, quiet human could bring the mighty Krath to their knees, then perhaps the universe was not as dark as it seemed. Perhaps the weak could stand against the strong. Perhaps there was justice in the cold spaces between the stars. That was humanity's true gift to the galaxy. Not technology, not trade, not diplomacy. Hope. 20 years after the incident, Emma visited Michael's farm. She was an admiral now, commanding fleets and shaping the future of the galaxy. But when she stepped out of her shuttle and saw the old man waiting on his porch, she felt like a 7-year-old girl again. "Mike," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Michael looked the same as always. Older, grayer, but with those same calm eyes. That same quiet strength. "Admiral Park," he said, a tiny smile crossing his face. "You got tall." Emma laughed and ran to hug him, not caring about dignity or protocol. For a long moment, they just stood there. Two people connected by a night that had changed everything. "I never properly thanked you," Emma said finally, "for saving my life." Michael shook his head. "You don't need to thank me. You turned out exactly the way you were supposed to. That's all the thanks I need." They sat on his porch as the sun set over New Kansas. Emma told him about the fleet, about her work, about the galaxy she was helping to build. Michael listened and nodded, asking quiet questions. As the stars came out, Emma looked at him. "Mike, that night, were your eyes really red?" Everyone says it was just the emergency lights, but Michael was quiet for a long time. His eyes reflected the starlight, dark and peaceful. "The galaxy is full of wonders, Emma," he said softly. "Some of them are out there in the stars, and some of them are inside us, waiting for the right moment to wake up." He looked at her with something like warmth. When someone you love is in danger, you become something more than yourself. That's not magic. That's not a trick of the light. That's just what it means to be human. Emma nodded slowly. She thought about her officers, her crew, the billions of people who depended on her decisions. She thought about what she would do to protect them, and for just a moment, she felt something stir inside her. Something old and fierce and absolutely without fear. Her father's eyes, her mother's heart, and something else entirely, passed down from an old soldier who taught her that love was the most dangerous weapon in the universe. The legacy of the honey badger lived on, and the galaxy never forgot.